Every day is a challenge, but wrestling really helped shape me into the person I am today. My dad always made sure, like, to help me believe in who I am and who I can be. So yeah, he always made sure I believed that. I would always think to myself, like, why not me? Yeah, I always stayed consistent because I wanted to make sure people remembered me and my story. So, I haven't done all the things I've wanted to do in the sport, but I am definitely proud of what I've accomplished thus far. I think that's the beauty of knowing that all things come to an end is that, like, you get to make the most of your time in each moment, in each day, and that day never comes back. That time never comes back. But yeah, you get to make the most of it in your time in history. So I think that's the beauty of knowing all things come to an end. Yeah, I think just recognizing that all things have, an end point, an end date, an end time. And so you have a finite amount of time to make things happen or to, I guess, achieve goals or make the most of that time, however long it is. So I interpret it as an opportunity and just as something that has an end point. And the goal is to try and get the most out of yourself as you can before you reach that point. So I think that's the beauty of things having an end. Yeah, I learned a lot. First of all, I had to kind of grow up quickly and kind of become the man of my family and my household with my mother and my sisters and just take care of them. But it really, in the sense of sports in my life, it made me lose the fear of loss, of losing a match, or, you know what I mean? I felt like I had lost the most important thing in my life, which was my dad and my grandma, loved ones. We don't get those back. We don't get them back. So I lost the fear of, I guess, failing in a sense. And it made me kind of fearless because, what is losing a wrestling match compared to losing your dad? So I learned a lot about just myself and having no fear. Yeah, just to enjoy the moments and recognize that it is about the process and not the outcome. And that goes for everything, in sports, we just reached a destination. We won the Pac-12 title and I won, and it's just like, I'm not really looking at that. That moment's great, the peaks are great, but when I can look back and think of all the time I spent with my teammates and, traveling and training and working hard and enjoying those moments, that's what it's all about for me. And especially, with the loss of my father, it's not about the end point of his life, but thinking about all the time I got to spend with him throughout, my life and his life and enjoying those moments. So it's all about the process and not about the outcome or results. So yeah.
I'm gonna ask you that one more time. And this.
Yeah, one of the most important things that I learned after losing, my father and my grandmother was to let go, in a sense, and let go of fear of failure or loss. I learned a lot about just having to process through that and go through that and move on, in a sense, and obviously never forgetting about them, but being able to continue going on with my life as they would want me to, and losing that sense of loss or that fear of loss and failure, especially in my daily life and sports and all that, just losing the fear of losing. The impact wrestling has had on me to process all these things going on in my life has been tremendous. It's almost like I had therapy kind of like right at my hands, not just like in a mental space or spiritual, but also my ability to physically let out that anguish and those feelings and be able to express myself on the mat. And so wrestling like really is my therapy, and it's helped me tremendously to overcome a lot of the things that have gone on in my life, and it's given me purpose and goals, and you know, I'm present every day trying to achieve my goals. So wrestling has been, you know, huge. So I remember when I went home, it was the first meet was going to take place at Lehigh University, and unfortunately I got the call that my dad passed away, so I flew home from Philadelphia to San Diego. And I remember after being home for about a week or so, you know, kind of unsure of what was going to go on in the future, you know, Coach Pendleton calls me and he says, hey, like, I need you to make sure you're getting some workouts in. Like, I want you to get on the mat somewhere and wrestle and, like, keep training. And at first, that kind of, like, made me angry because I'm like, you know, my dad just passed away. Like, you care about me training and stuff like that. Like, how could you? But once I kind of settled down and, like, really was able to kind of think about it, it was really inspiring to me that he still wanted me to achieve my goals and go for my goals and work towards them despite, you know, what was going on in my life. Coach P knew that, you know, ahead of me could be great things and a great opportunity and, you know, goals that I set and wanted to achieve, and he wanted me to achieve those as well. So I'm grateful that he held me accountable at times when I was at my lowest. Yeah, one thing I wanted people to learn or see or be inspired by is that, you know, despite any adversities or despite your circumstances, you could be at your lowest low, you know, you could take your hardest loss or losses and you could still come out victorious. And that's a part of it, being a part of the process, you know what I mean? So, you know, seeing me, I wanted people to be inspired and see that despite, you know, I, you know, went through so much adversity, even before my dad passed away, you know, and I went through it as my dad passed away, right as season began. You know, I lost my grandma a few weeks later. You know, I've gone through mental health issues, physical health. I could still be victorious and express myself and tell my story, you know. So I just wanted people to be inspired by that.
Perfect. These last quotes are bringing us back to that moment against OKC.
Yeah.
So we'll just go ahead. This first one you said, I guess we can merge these in your response. One you were talking about, you remember Coach Jordan telling you guys to paint your own picture with this moment, so
Yeah.
however you want it. And then also the fact that you said you just felt like you had nothing to lose against OKC.
Yeah.
So we'll go for the.
I was just focused on me and thinking to myself, this is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to set an example. I just felt this divine confidence from God come over me when I stepped on that stage. And
You know what that is?
I had no fear because, yeah, okay. I just felt this divine confidence from God come over me when I stepped on that stage. And I had no fear because I knew he had a plan and I had a plan, and I just stuck to it.
Just like, you know, your approach to life.
I was a rambunctious kid. I was definitely a troublemaker. I got suspended from school a lot. I got kicked out of my middle school. I was like full of energy, life. I was curious, and I don't know. I've always been just like a energetic person, I guess, and that got me in trouble a lot as a kid. But once I learned to channel that energy, like it went to really good places. And but yeah, I was kind of like a wild child, I guess, in a sense. Not anything too crazy, but like I just liked to run around, and I didn't listen to adults, and I talked a lot. So yeah, I was a pretty rambunctious kid, I guess.
Gotcha. And at what point did wrestling come into your life?
Shoot, I feel like in a sense, like wrestling was always there. I mean, it's like kind of like instinct, right? It's like kind of primal, like you wrestle around when you're a little kid and this, that, and the other. But my dad created a wrestling club for us in my neighborhood when I was about like 5 or 6 years old. And so he started a wrestling club so I could get into wrestling. He was a former wrestler, and so that started my career, I guess, in a sense. And then once I got to like middle school, it kind of started getting more serious, and I was getting pretty good, and I knew that was something that I was interested in for kind of like the future, and then it went from there. My dad was everything, man. Like, he is the reason I am who I am today. He was the guy who was into music and sports and like environment, like outdoorsy stuff. And he was a wrestling coach. He was a teacher, and so he just paved the way for me. And he taught me everything, and he took me everywhere with him. And so my dad played a huge role, and he's the one who started the wrestling club in my town. You know what I mean? And took me to tournaments all over, and just like he's the one who got me into it, and he believed in me enough to take me around the state and the country eventually and wrestle and just teach me the ropes. And so having a dad as a coach is an awesome bond and an awesome opportunity. Sometimes it can get rough, obviously, in sense of like, I guess there's some pressure there, or my dad was hard on me and held me accountable. But once I began to take it into my own, it wasn't hard for me to like take my own goals and dreams into my own hands and push myself and want to be pushed. You know what I mean? And once I got into high school, like my dad kind of took a back seat and was just like there to support me. He didn't really like coach me as much, like in terms of like being like right there. He was just kind of like my supporter all the time and someone I could have conversations with. But having a dad as a coach is awesome. It's cool to see him coach other people too. It was cool to see him coach high schoolers when I was just a little kid, and he takes me to high school tournaments, and I was just like a young kid running around and watching these guys wrestle. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, I remember like I think it was like my freshman or sophomore year, I got like my first letter from a college about wrestling, and I was just like, wow, like I can actually go to college and like wrestle. Like I wasn't like too knowledgeable about it, but once like I got my first letter from college and I showed my parents, I'm like, wow, look at this, like they also kind of helped and bought into the idea that I could go to college and possibly get a scholarship and wrestle for a university, and so yeah, that's when I knew really like I wanted that to be my future, and I started focusing my mind a lot on wrestling. I did other sports too. I played football, I ran track, and I was pretty good at those, but I felt like wrestling was just my niche. It was what I was best at, and I would feel like it was my best opportunity to get a Division I scholarship. So once I saw that that was available, I was like, let's go for it. No, actually, my dad went to Cal Poly Pomona. He wrestled there for a little bit, then they dropped the program, but he got a degree from there. My mom also has a degree from Cal State, or Sac State. She went to school later in her life when we were already like in like middle school and high school. She was going to school, but she also got her degree, and my dad got his degree as well. He was the only one of his 7 brothers and sisters to go to college, so he was a first-generation student, and so that made me second generation. I had somebody who already had went to college, and so college was always kind of the expectation, you know what I mean? I just want to say what's up. All right. We still recording?
We're still recording.
Am I focused in? I don't know.
Is that how? Yeah, go ahead and say however you were going to speak. Okay.
Yep. So I'm from Imperial Beach, California, the most southwesterly city in the United States, zip code 91932, down by the border of Tijuana. That's where I'm from, man. Born and raised. And I'm from a very diverse community. We got some military families down there by the base. We got, a lot of Latino culture and Latino families who come from across the border, and just a mixed population. And as a kid, I was a skater, I was a surfer. I did everything. Like, I grew up by the beach, 4 blocks from the beach. I grew up in the water surfing all summer. I grew up skating, running around town with my homies, like riding BMX bikes, doing all that. So yeah, I had a good childhood, honestly, and like, I grew up in all my friends was, diverse, mixed, everybody had fun, it was cool.
What's that consist of? Like, do you speak any other languages? languages?
Yeah, hablo español también, me llamo Mateo Olmos, tengo 23 años. Fui a una escuela bilingüe que se llama Nestor Elementary School. I went to Nestor Elementary where I learned Spanish. Actually, from kinder through 6th grade, Spanish was the first language that I learned like in school. So I went to a Spanish immersion school about like 10 minutes down the road called Nestor. And then my dad is from Mexico. He came to the United States when he was young, and then so, he grew up in East Los Angeles. My mom's also from LA. My mom is black, so, I grew up in that too. I grew up like different cultures, different backgrounds, and then I'm mixed, so half black, half Mexican. I've always approached life knowing like I have to set the example, and like, I want my sisters to see me and see that they can achieve anything in their life, and like that they also can push the pace in a sense and just, I don't know, go after whatever it is they want. I've always wanted to be the big brother that leads the way, you know what I mean? God gave me that opportunity. It's also been hard at times, it's because I have two little sisters, so, it's different for me to be like the wrestler guy and like, hanging out with my homies, growing up, running around town and just being rowdy, and then having like my sister's a lot more like quiet and reserved and gentle, and so, there's times where like, I'm like, let's do this, let's get on this roller coaster, let's go freaking do this, and, I have to learn like to go at her pace as she's like a young woman, so it's like learning that part of myself too. It was like I'm being a big brother and I have sisters, so learning to take care of them and stuff and that. But yeah, it's been cool, man. I'm glad I get to, be their big brother and like just protect them and lead the way and like help them wherever I. Yeah, so we went to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. That's where Lehigh is. We were getting ready to wrestle our first duel at Lehigh, and it was the night before. I'm getting the weight off. We do a weight cutting, workout. So I was working really hard, grinding, and I got down to weight. I was super excited. I get in the van. I'm high-fiving my teammates. Let's get it. Let's go tomorrow. Like, I'm ready to go. And so Devin was there. Devin Turner, he's one of my closest friends, my brother. He's been training with us. He comes and he's like, hey, like, get out of the van and get in the other van with the coaches. And I'm like, what? And so he's like, no, like, get out of the van. And he sounded serious. So I was like, okay. I walk over to the other van. My head coach and one of my assistant coaches is there. And, like in the car, I'm like, okay. I was like, am I in trouble? And they're just like, no. And they seemed like kind of serious. So I got in the van. It's Devin and my two coaches, and my mom calls me. And I pick up the phone, and she's like in a panic. She's crying. And she's like, Mateo, I have to tell you, like, your dad passed away. And I'm like, it was just, I was in shock. And yeah, so she told me my dad passed away. He unfortunately died of suicide in the house that I grew up in and that he was still living in Imperial Beach. So she called me and told me he passed away, and I was just heartbroken, and the rest of the night went the way it did, and then I ended up flying home the next day from Philadelphia to San Diego, and the rest was history, I guess.
And talk me through, like, the emotions of, what was going through your head, the thoughts and the emotions, when you first heard the news and then, days after that.
Yeah, I had known my dad was struggling, and I've been texting him, while I was traveling to Pennsylvania, and he asked if he could call, but I was, in the van on the way. I was with my teammates, so I was like, I'll call you later, and I never got to call him. But man, it's just like, it's heartbreaking, you know what I mean? It's just like, you have all these plans of the future and, spending time with somebody or hanging out with somebody, and, just that's your dad, you know what I mean? You only get one dad, you only get one mom, so it's like, and I was close with my dad. He was my coach, he was my best friend, he was my teacher, he's everything in my life, and so it's just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for me to have to accept that, and it was heartbreaking for me to see my mom and my sisters. It was heartbreaking for me to see them, go through it as well, and just see people who love my dad, be affected. And obviously, as much as it hurt me, it hurt everybody too. And so it was hard, but I had to be there for them too, and I had to be I had to be there to hold my mom and hold my sisters and be strong for them. And so even, at my weakest moments, and they were there strong for me too, when I was weak. And so it was just a lot. It was a lot to process. It's still a lot to process, but,
Gotcha.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's just a conversation, especially around the family and that we're having, constantly is about mental health. And I think mental health has taken on a newfound, I don't know if I want to say respect, but mental health has been a topic of conversation a lot more lately. And there's been a lot more resources and a lot more, open doors in terms of having a conversation about it. But in my family, it's been, it's a daily conversation, and it's something that, was always thought about and always, known about, but to be able to reflect on it in a personal matter is something that's necessary. So, and for me in my life, like I've struggled with mental health, and especially since my dad has passed away, it brings a newfound trauma, in my life. So, I've had to learn more every day and seek out resources to help myself and my family just to continue to stay healthy in that manner. The road is never flat and perfect, but, to be able to navigate the bumpy road or the broken path, in a sense. So it's important. I think one of the craziest parts was people, men around, my family and stuff, telling me you're the man of the house now. And me recognizing that role, being there for my mom and my sisters, and my mom telling me if my sisters ever get married, or when they get married, I'm going to be the one to walk them down the aisle, and I have to be the positive male role model in their life. I have to, I'm always only going to be their brother, but I'm also, somewhat dad in a way now, in sense of I have to provide them that male guidance in their life, you know what I mean? So it's yeah, I had to grow up in a way that I hadn't before, and it came quicker than expected. So that was a role that came as a result of what happened, but I've learned to accept it and grow in it and learn in it, and it changed me as a person in the way I want to lead by example and be their big brother and be a son to my mom and just all the ways in my life. It's scary. It's scary thinking about that responsibility, or when financial stuff started coming on the table, or having to, sign a death certificate, or having to, discuss about what's going to happen to the house or the property, or, this, that, and the other. That's scary. It was scary for me to be put in that role so quickly, and but I also felt I was ready, I had been prepared, or I've been away in college, I've been gaining skills, I've gotten my degree, this, that, and the others. I felt prepared to take on the challenges ahead and be there for them and take care of business, I guess. Yeah, breathing techniques all the time, deep breaths, learning to control my anxieties and my struggles. Wrestling has been huge, being able to have the opportunity to have positive male role models in my life, to be around my brothers, which are my teammates, and just share life experiences with them and be able to confide in them. Talking to my mom every day, she's back home, I'm here, but being able to converse with her and, just talk about life and talk about things. And taking care of my physical health, my recovery, my eating habits, just little things like sleep, things that you can try and control every day, I guess. So, just taking care of myself and just continuing to, take care of myself. Man, it's been everything, honestly. It's being able to be a part of a team is just an incredible blessing, because I'm already surrounded by 35 men, young men, older men, who are there for me, who care about me, who see my struggles and want to see me overcome obstacles and adversities, and also, who share and struggle as well, and me being a part of their life. And so, after my dad died, having the coaches in my life, those are dads in their own, respective lives, and, but they're also somewhat, my dads, and, they care about me, they hold me accountable, they're pushing me to be better every day, and having them to talk to interact with, to, just, yeah, just be coached by. It's just like, it's an incredible opportunity, and I'm grateful I have that. So I'm grateful I have my coaches. I'm grateful I have my teammates. It's made this somewhat easier, and being able to, stand tall because I have other people around me holding me up and also pushing me to be the best I can be.
Freaking great answer, brother. Wow, wow, wow.
The crazy thing is, like, one of my best friends' dad actually committed suicide on my birthday. So it's like, and then one of my old wrestling teammates, his dad committed suicide this last spring, and then my dad, November 4th. So, just talking to them and gaining perspective and giving advice to one another. If there was somebody out there who was experiencing, the things I've gone through, I would say first and foremost, that's tough. I would say first and foremost, stick close to loved ones, family members you can trust, and lean on them in this time. Be very close. Be close. Like, I slept in my mom's bed, for nights. Be close, Be close with those who are around and love you. Don't be afraid to seek help and seek guidance. And also know that, death isn't the end. And that whoever it is you lost or are losing is, they live within you. And, I believe it's spiritual is forever. So, I would say be grateful for the moments you got to spend, as hard as that can be, and have a newfound perspective of, shining the person you love's light through you in your life. And it's such a hard thing to go through. There's no right answer, but I say just be vulnerable, find strength in your vulnerability, and continue to move forward, and look at the positive parts of life, because life is shorter than we think for all of us. So enjoy it.
Mateo, bro. Wow, man. Literally, I think there's no better note than to leave it off like that. Like, how do you feel, bro?
Feel good, man. I feel like I'm in therapy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Therapy session.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. I was worried that